something greater than ourselves. Otherwise, we find when people are always looking for ourselves. It's amazing to me how many of us go searching for ourselves. Have you found yourself yet? Have you? People feel uncertain, and what's my purpose in life, and do I even belong here, and was it a big bang or what brought me here? How did I fall into existence? We look within, we turn our gaze inward, we look inside of ourselves to find the meaning for ourselves. Does that make any sense to you? How am I didn't create myself, but let me look inside of myself. But when we look outside of ourselves, when we look into something that's greater than just me, it's amazing how much comfort and security comes into our life. Purpose comes into our lives when we realize I live for something bigger than just me. It's the beauty of being a parent, particularly if we're talking fathers today, because all of a sudden you realize, man, there's more, I have greater responsibility than just feeding this body and just looking after this body. I actually have others to care for. The urgency of the lives around us should begin to grip our hearts and change our prayers and adjust our plans. Matthew chapter 13, verse 44, it says, the kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field. When a man found it, he hid it again. And then in his joy, he went and sold all he had and bought that field. Can you imagine the picture here? Sold everything he had for one thing, one field. Because the treasure hidden in the field was of such significance that if he just got that field, everything else was okay. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant looking for fine pearls. When he found one of great value, he went away and he sold everything he had and bought it. Understand, he's a merchant. He must have had many fine pearls, many good ones. And yet he chooses willingly and happily to get rid of everything else so that he can have just one pearl. That's the marriage process, isn't it? Hey? I was listening to a podcast. I was telling some folk over the weekend, listening to a podcast of a guy and a girl that were living together. They had 2 children together. They were renting a house together. A daughter of 4 and a boy of 1 year old. So they'd been together for a while. This lady then suddenly got to an understanding of, let's actually put our finances together. Let's live like we actually are one family. And the guy looked at her and she said, I want to get married and I want to combine our finances. And the story this lady tells on the podcast, the husband looked at her and said, or the guy, I'm not very impressed with this guy. This guy, I won't call him a man, this guy looked at this lady and said, no, I'm quite happy the way it is. I don't want to get married to you. The point is that he wanted to keep his options open. He'd lived with this lady for how many years? Had children with this lady. But mentally he's thinking, I'm still free agent. Something in him hadn't gripped him enough to be willing to give up all the other ladies. You know, all those millions that like him? You know, all those millions. We have this mental thing, if I commit to this job, all those other jobs that are waiting to employ me won't be available to me anymore. You know, if I start this plan, all those other plans, yeah? And this guy could not commit to one lady as the greatest treasure. And in this parable that Jesus tells us that when we become so caught up with one goal, everything else finds its place. You may remember Jesus challenges the rich young ruler to give up he says, I do all these good things for the poor. And Jesus says, yes, but go give up everything you have. Then come and follow me. And the man looked and he's shameful because he says, I cannot. And Jesus was not saying we shouldn't have stuff, but to the rich young ruler, he was asking, will you change what has gripped your heart? He's asking this man, what has your heart? And will you shift it that I can have your heart? This man so consumed by the temporary that the eternal had no room in his heart. Jesus, Son of God, talking to this man, eternity staring into his eyes. And he's so caught up with the things of this life that he ignores the things of the life to come. You might be saying to me, but Craig, I'm hurting. I'm confused. I'm overwhelmed. I'm no good for a journey now. I don't want to be a pilgrim person. I just need to sit and catch my breath and lick my wounds. Well, I can understand that thinking. I've been there from time to time myself. One of my heroes is a lady named Yvonne Stegman. She was a pastor's wife. They counted for the Lord. She grew up as a young child. She had a disease called polio. It's not very common these days. But it means that when we met her, her whole life, she had calipers on her legs. She had metal devices that helped her stand up. She walked with a crutch her whole life. Her husband died in his early 50s, and we met her when she retired to the South Coast to live with her sister, far from anyone she knew. She went from being a public figure, church leader, to being alone in a new community. Only her sister and brother-in-law knew her. She joined our church. She got herself there. She drove her own car. She came in with her calipers and her crutches every Sunday. You might say, I feel like her. But Yvonne got to know us. She turned up. She prayed. She cheered us all on. She told us that for 52 years she'd been praying for people every day. You might feel weak. You might feel as though you don't know anyone, you don't fit in, you're not ready for the journey. I want to tell you, there was a lady who changed our lives because she didn't let her weakness excuse her from the journey. She couldn't go fast, but she remained a pilgrim in her heart. She struggled over uneven ground. I remember her coming. We used to pray in someone's upstairs room. She used to be there every Saturday morning, making her way up those stairs slowly, but still getting there. Everything against the journey, and yet in her heart, she was a pilgrim. She used to tell us this: one life to live, it will soon be past. Only what's done for Christ will last. I came across this passage in my devotional reading this week, and I want to share it with you. It's a strong passage. It's a challenging passage. I hope you're ready for it, but it perfectly illustrates this pilgrim-hearted people that God is calling us to be. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 and verse 29, Paul says, what I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. Can we stop there? What I mean, brothers and sisters, is that the time is short. 1 Corinthians, if I remember correctly, was written around 55 to 60 AD. Can I suggest, whatever your eschatology, wherever you think this world is going, the time is shorter now than it was in AD 60. Yes? What I mean now, brothers and sisters, the time is short. That's the introduction. That's the mind thoughts around this whole passage of what's to come. So let's go. From now on, those who have wives should live as they do not. Before you get offended and your brain starts spinning, stick with me. Verse 30, those who mourn as if they do not. That doesn't sound very loving, Jesus. Those who are happy as if they are not. That sounds even worse. But those who buy something as if it were not those to keep. What on earth is going on in this passage? Those who use the things of the world as if not engrossed in them. For this world in its present form is passing away. I don't know how good you were at English. Begripstoets. What's that in English? Comprehension, thank you. But notice the passage begins and ends with the same thought. And there's a challenge in between. The time is short, 29 tells us. 31 says, because this world in its present form is passing away. Therefore, in between those two, we are to live a certain way. Begins with those who have wives should live as though they do not. Now, does that mean I'm out of here? I don't even have to check when I come home for dinner. And is that what it's saying? No, it's not. Those who are happy as if they were sad. No, those who mourn as if they are. Are we saying sorry for you and your sorrows, but it doesn't count? Not at all. There's this beautiful literary device that the Bible uses a lot of. It's called a hyperbole. It's the creative overstatement of truth to drive a point home. The Bible also says that we should hate our mother and father. Now, when I was unsaved, my kids are in the room. My goodness, I'm giving them lessons. When I was unsaved as a teenager, I loved this verse. You see, I'd gone to church a lot, but I hadn't had Jesus in my heart. The Bible says if you have to hate your father and mother, that we can love him. That doesn't mean we hate our parents, but the point is, in comparison, the love of a child for a parent, the beautiful love of a child for a godly parent, should compare to hate when we love our God. Make more sense? The love that I have for others compared to my wife. Sorry for you guys. It's like, I love you guys, but not that much. You understand my point? Those of you guys that like PC, I can use your, no, I can't use your computers. But compared to Apple, PC, I don't know. Anyway, try to lighten the moment just a little. Just in case you think Paul is bagging on marriages, verse 27, 2 verses before that, he tells us to stay as you are. He says, if you're married, stay married. Even in these uncertain times. So he's not telling us that marriage is bad, that grieving is bad, that being happy is bad. But he says, in comparison to the time that is short and the world that is passing away, we need to live a certain way. I love this. He puts it this way. And those who buy things as if it's not theirs to keep, those who are using the things of the world as not engrossed by them. You watch someone get a new hobby. I always tell you, if I'm interested in something, you'll see it in my YouTube feed because I'm learning about it. Yeah? We get so engrossed by our fleeting interests in this life, don't we? And it can take us off track. The commentaries say, those who have wives should live as those that have none, as if they have none. Doesn't mean that we shouldn't love our wives, we shouldn't love our families, but we should live for the Lord in our marriage, that our marriage isn't the goal, but living as a married man, as a married woman, that we serve the Lord rather than each other. Colette, sadly, is not the ultimate goal in my life, but serving with her, the Father is. Yes? And the more I love Jesus, the more I love my wife. Isn't that amazing? The more I love Jesus, the more I have grace for my neighbors. Yeah? Okay. You understand what I'm trying to get to? Okay. Cool. Don't be engrossed in what we have. Zondervan commentary says, undivided devotion to the Lord is the apostles' aim. So the last couple of weeks we've spoken about Pilgrim People. We said it's a heart thing, whose heart is set on pilgrimage. We said last week we should live with eternity in mind, that the life to come should shape this life. Today we're going to have a look at where my treasure is. New Living Translation, that verse 7, it says where we've said they grow from strength to strength. The New Living says they continue to grow stronger. Don't you love that? Those whose hearts are set on pilgrimage, it ends with they continue to grow stronger. Let's have a quick look at people who aren't pilgrim people. When we are not pilgrim people, then the upkeep of the church distracts us from advancing the kingdom. When we are not pilgrim people, the upkeep of the church distracts us from advancing the kingdom. What does that mean? Well, we make more decisions for us than we do for them. As long as those of us that call themselves us are happy, who cares about the rest of our city? Then we choose leaders that suit us rather than those that can advance the kingdom. Have you ever looked at our leadership team and thought, oh, I wish someone I liked was on that team? Richard and Lindsay are getting ready to move to another country. I wonder how many of you are sad that the guy that you liked or the girl that you liked is no longer going to be around. When we are no longer pilgrim people, the upkeep of the church distracts us from advancing the kingdom. Could you imagine having John the Baptist on your leadership team? What about the odd freedom fighter? There was one on Jesus 12. What about the odd tax collector? Yeah? You see, when we are pilgrim people, we do what's good for the city we're in, not just feathering our own nest. Also, I want the band that sings my songs, the preacher that preaches what I like to hear about, the etc., etc. You with me? Number 2, when I'm not a pilgrim person, church membership becomes a right rather than a responsibility. We're speaking about being a father and honoring the dads today. But remember, it's a privilege to be part of a family. There's also a responsibility, right? Someone's got to take out the trash. Yeah? Someone's got to look after the little messages the dogs leave on the grass. Number 3, worship becomes our weekly buzz rather than a catalyst for mission. Those of us English-speaking people or Afrikaans-speaking people, I hope you didn't struggle too much with our last song this morning. Hey? I want to say, gee, thanks, Tebs. You had to put all the difficult words in one song. Hey? I think it's so cool. So cool. Even if I can't pronounce the words yet. By the end of the song, I was better than I was at the beginning, right? Yes. But you see, we're not just talking about what suits me. Yeah? Worship becomes our weekly buzz rather than a catalyst for mission. I want to challenge us this morning. If we are living as pilgrims, we shouldn't come to church saying, oh, I just want to, sing some songs, feel okay, then I can go home. Rather, we should say, oh, Jesus, when I see you, I want to jump out of my skin for you. I want to do, like, some response must come. Yeah? Isaiah puts it this way. He said, I saw the Lord. And then he ends off with saying, and I heard him say, here, and I heard him call me, and I said, here am I, send me. Wouldn't that be amazing when we come together as a church family and we worship God and we see him a little clearer, and then in our hearts saying, oh God, here am I, send me, whether it's back to work, whether it's back to my family, whether it's to the spa after church, whether it's to the robot, where that dolly guy's going to jump in front of me in his car. Oh Lord, help me to serve you. Our pastors become religious service providers rather than mission mobilizers. Has anyone got sore toes yet? By now you all should have, because I'm stepping everywhere. Yeah? When our hearts are not set on pilgrimage, we expect the pastors to be religious service providers, not mission mobilizers. Sometimes we are hurting and we do need some care. But pity the person whose care robs them of their dignity. Think of physio. Have you ever seen a physio? You go to them when you have something wrong with you. And what do? They hurt you like anything. Yeah? And then they give you exercises to go hurt yourself with at home. And then you come back and they hurt you some more. Why? So that your body can get strong, so it can do what it needs to do again. Yes? There are times where the pastors need to care for each other. And as brothers and sisters, we do the same. Yeah? But man, it shouldn't be that we end up in these dependent relationships. Oh, you got to come back to me so I can pray with you next week. You know? No, you can't hear God unless I pray for you. You understand? I remember someone had a friend, and the friend looked like they wanted to ask Jesus to be the Lord of their lives. And he came and he said to me, can you come with me because you need to do the talking? I'm like, no, you can talk. We don't need a pastor to get people born again. Just tell them how to love Jesus, right? Pastors become mission mobilizers rather than service providers. Quiet here today. Then preaching, preaching becomes a form of entertainment rather than a battle cry. Form of entertainment rather than a battle cry. Don't want to get into any more trouble. Discipleship becomes a sanctified version of self-help rather than recruitment and training to serve on the front lines. This world is thick of telling you how you can be your best you. Oh, you make me the best version of me. It's still about me. Isn't it great? Like I'm complimenting you, but I'm talking about me. And discipleship isn't just so that I can be a better person. It's so that I can serve on the front lines. The Bible becomes a stimulus for self-exploration rather than the summons to join in God's global purpose. My heart is set on pilgrimage. It's not just about me. Jesus becomes a mild means of self-fulfillment rather than a conquering king who's summoned us into his service. Finally, our decisions become safe and domesticated rather than bold and gutsy. You see, I'm not just shouting at you. I'm calling all of us to get on this highway of Pilgrim People. Because we all have a place on this road. We all have a part to play. I mean, think it through. Why would Mike and Daphne leave being part of a secure church to plant Grace Cov in 1997? Why? Why would you leave a church family that you know well to go and turn up in a rented accommodation and you might be the only two there? Why would we as a church send Wawa and Zandi, who we quite like, to another part of the city to start another church? We only get to see them from time to time. Why would we do that? Why would we celebrate Richard and Lindsay using their job to follow the call of God to another nation? Why on earth would we do that if it's about our comfort and our preferences? Why would we take time, like we did at Last Grace United, to pray for other nations and other churches and other people, not just ourselves? Why on earth? Why would Grace Cov choose to be a base to support other churches like we have La Cité in Paris? Why would we do that? Because we are not living like this church is our only interest. We're living that this church would be a church that serves Jesus in everything we do. Our hearts are set on pilgrimage. We're not trying to set up camp at the off-ramp on the freeway. Have you ever noticed when you drive to the coast for holiday? Ever noticed? You've driven past, I'm looking at you trying to remember what that place is. The place with the churros. Harry Smith. Hey? Everyone pulls over. Have you seen how those restaurants are full? You've seen them? Have you ever noticed maybe you're going on a further journey, you stop, remember the stops on the side of the freeway, those concrete benches? Remember those? Hey? Some people get out and they stand around and they've got like a bag of chips. You can see they're awkward and they like got a warm Coke and that's their break for the next couple of 100 kilometers, yeah? Other people stop and the table comes out and Ma puts the dook over the table and they get the gas thing and the kettle's boiling. You've ridden past those people, haven't you? Hey? Boiled eggs, like, the microwave comes out to heat up the milk. You know those guys? Hey, those, yes. And like after they've been there 5 minutes, that stop on the side of the road begins to look like home. Pretty comfortable. It's got a nice view. And the cars start whizzing by. And we think, we'll just stay for one more cup. Suki City kettle on. Just one more cup of coffee. This is so nice to be here. Remember, I'm needing to finish. Okay. Yeah, remember, Craig, you need to finish. I've only got 4 more points, which I won't get to, so I'm trying to wrap up here. Remember, Jesus went up the mount that we now know of. It's called the Mountain of Transfiguration with 3 disciples. When he got to the top, the Father, I love this part, said, "This is my beloved Son." And all of a sudden, it's like the human disguise on Jesus fell off. And his face shone, and the 3 disciples were like, whoa, what on earth? We didn't realize the significance of this human that we followed. Peter says, "Whoa, Jesus, this is so cool to be here. Let's just build some shacks. Let's take some branches and make some shelters. We'll just stay here with you." can I suggest that in our lives there's such pressure to build some comfort into our lives and just sit on the side of the freeway and watch the other cars go flying by. I'm not fighting with you whether you have stuff or not. I'm not fighting with you whether you're married or not. Remember, we've established that, right? What I'm fighting with is, does our stuff have us? Does it have our hearts? Does it have our minds? Or are we pilgrim people where everything I have is simply there to serve Jesus, to serve his kingdom, that he might call me onwards? All right. The kids are ready. They're going to come in and do a little item for us for Father's Day. Let me finish with this. Pilgrim people have settled where their heart is. They have decided which treasure is most compelling. They've chosen to live differently to those around them. Pilgrim people, the final slide, have chosen that their undeniable highest call is the same as Jesus, to seek and to save the lost. Thanks. Tibbs, over to the next guys.
Cool. So we're going to have the kids come in. But while they're making their way in, if you're a single mom and you have young sons, boys from 12 older, we're, as men, are going fishing next weekend, and if you'd love them to be a part of the fishing expedition, English, Andre, it's not just you that your daughter bundles deplete. Please speak to Andrew. Would love to have them would love to go and just connect with them and just hang out with some guys around within the church. I've said it multiple times, we're a family, so hopefully there's gentlemen that can be role models and father figures in their lives as well. So please chat to Andrew and we'll make that happen. Cool? Sing that song with the hard words again.